Discover the divine revelation behind the 3,000-year conflict, an inspiring biblical answer. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, a tale unfolds that echoes through history, rooted deep in the land of Canaan. A young man named Joseph, favored by his father Jacob, walked among the fields where the golden grain swayed under the warm sun. Clad in a coat of many colors, he struck a figure of divine promise and familial discord, sending ripples of envy among his 11 brothers. "Behold, we shall see what becomes of his dreams," they whispered, hearts darkened by jealousy, for Joseph's dreams foretold a future where he would rise even above them. Joseph often wandered through the valleys, dreaming vivid dreams of the sun, moon, and stars bowing before him. A vision bestowed by God, a glimpse into a destiny more profound than mere earthly ambitions. Yet, in the stillness of those enchanted moments, shadows crept among his brothers, thickening into a conspiracy thinly veiled. "Let us slay him," echoed their voices, each word laced with betrayal, hearts hardened like stone. But Reuben, the eldest, interjected with a proposal, urging mercy. "Cast him into a pit instead." As the sun surrendered to the night, Joseph found himself torn from the embrace of his father's love, thrown into the hollow pit, the cold earth surrounding him. There, darkness enveloped him as fear gripped his heart. Yet deep within, he sensed the hand of God upon him. It was not the end, but the beginning of a divine narrative that would weave through the ages. Despair pulsed within him as he sank into silence, the cries of his spirit mingling with the distant rustle of camels, a sound born of Providence. The Ishmaelite traders arrived, their offer of silver shattering the bonds of blood. With a deep breath and eyes lifted toward the stars, Joseph was bound and carried away to a land unknown, a flicker of hope igniting like a star in the dark night sky. In Egypt, God orchestrated a transformation within Joseph, who found himself in the house of Potiphar. Through his unwavering integrity, he rose in favor, yet temptation cast its shadow upon him. "How could I betray my master?" he pondered, heart longing for the Lord. Joseph fled the snare of sin, his moral compass unwavering, but false accusations imprisoned him in a cell, dark walls echoing the despair of the pit. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now, let's continue with what the Lord did next. In that desolate prison, the Lord's whispers broke the silence. Dreams danced before Joseph's eyes, the foretelling of famine seeping into his soul, igniting a resilient flame of faith. As he interpreted the dreams of Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker, he sensed the threads of God's plan weaving closer. Yet the years of trial pressed heavily, each moment a battle against the fading echoes of hope. Meanwhile, a famine gripped Canaan, drawing Joseph's brothers into Egypt to seek sustenance, leaving behind their complicated past. Little did they know, the mighty ruler before whom they would stand was their own brother, cloaked in power, bearing the weight of providence. As they approached him, uncertainty clouded their faces, their hearts rattling with guilt, unaware that the divine tapestry spun through betrayal and grace was on the brink of revelation. What paths would unfold as the truth awaited to be unveiled in that hollowed chamber of power? The stage was set for a profound encounter, one that would encapsulate forgiveness, faith and the sovereign hand of God at work in the deepest mysteries of humanity. As the brothers stood before Joseph, the air thickened with unspoken tension. Their eyes, clouded with trepidation, fell upon the grand visage of their brother, now adorned in the vestments of Egyptian authority. Joseph's heart raced as he beheld their faces, lined with hardship and regret. The youngest, Benjamin, was there among them, stirring dormant emotions and memories of shared laughter from their youth. But sorrow and guilt hung heavily around them like a shroud. Though they know not who I am, Joseph thought, the Lord has deemed this moment. When he spoke, his voice was calm yet laden with authority. You have come to buy grain, he proclaimed, mercy and judgment in his tone. But I see you, 10 men seeking sustenance, carrying the weight of guilt for the innocent blood you spilled. The memory of betrayal flooded his mind as his brothers flinched, fear igniting within their hearts. You are spies, he accused, veiled intentions shrouded within his words. In their desperation, the brothers protested vehemently, speaking of their father Jacob and the loss of their brother Joseph, whom they believed was dead. We are but one family, though we have been sent by our father, they cried, each word twisting the knife of sorrow deeper into Joseph's heart. Moved by the weight of their sorrow, Joseph retreated to a private chamber, tears flowing as he grappled with the realities of forgiveness and the pain that lay within. Shall I reveal my identity and embrace them? He whispered, the echoes of his soul wrestling with the vindictive flames of anguish and need for restitution. But the plan of God settled upon his heart, a plan far greater than revenge or bitterness. Rising once more, he resolved to test them, understanding that deception had taken root in their hearts. In their desperation, the brothers protested vehemently, speaking of their father Jacob and the loss of their brother Joseph, whom they believed was dead. We are but one family, though we have been sent by our father, they cried, each word twisting the knife of sorrow deeper into Joseph's heart. Moved by the weight of their sorrow, Joseph retreated to a private chamber, tears flowing as he grappled with the realities of forgiveness and the pain that lay within. Shall I reveal my identity and embrace them? He whispered, the echoes of his soul wrestling with the vindictive flames of anguish and need for restitution. But the plan of God settled upon his heart, a plan far greater than revenge or bitterness. Rising once more, he resolved to test them, understanding that deception had taken root in their hearts. I shall keep one of you as a prisoner, he decreed, and let the rest return with grain. Bring your youngest brother to me, that I may know if you tell the truth. With heavy hearts the brothers departed, laden with grain and the somber remembrance of their transgressions. Upon their journey home, the voices of doubt and guilt echoed louder with every step. Have we been punished for our brother's blood? They questioned one another, anguish piercing through their unity. In the months that followed, Joseph waited, seeking the face of God's plan to unfold. During their next visit, as they presented Benjamin before him, love and fear twined within him like vines around a trellis. The sight of his youngest brother stirred a fierce protectiveness that threatened to consume him. How could he continue this charade when his heart longed for reconciliation? Take this cup and let the youngest bear the blame, he commanded, his heart heavy with the impending revelation. At this moment, Judah, stepping forward, spoke words that would begin a healing process that Joseph had prayed for. Let me bear the punishment, Judah said, for our father mourns for his sons. Don't separate us again. Tears streamed down Joseph's face, the heart of the mighty ruler spilling over as he realized that his brothers had changed. Their hearts, once hardened with jealousy, bore the fruits of regret and love. At last Joseph could bear no more. "I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt," he cried, the weight of years unraveling in that moment as his family stood aghast before him. In that hallowed chamber where secrets had festered, redemption flowed free as he embraced them, crying, "God meant it for good." Yet even as joy enveloped them, a shadow loomed. A greater trial lay ahead. For Joseph knew that the journey was not yet over, and in the heart of Egypt, the sovereign hand of God was still weaving his mysterious plan, waiting for the day it would unfold in divine glory. What other trials awaited this family, and how would God continue to reveal his purpose through their journeys? In every heartache, can we not see his sovereign hand at work, guiding us to a future unfathomable? What awaits beyond the next horizon? And when Joseph made himself known, fear seized the hearts of his brothers, for they understood the weight of their sin. They stood frozen, trembling in the presence of the one they had wronged. "Do not be afraid," Joseph said softly, his voice a balm to their fears. "For what you meant for evil, God meant for good, to bring about the salvation of many." As his words hung in the air, the realization of divine providence enveloped them. Joseph's forgiveness was a thread woven through the tapestry of their lives, poised to undo the harm they had caused. "Come near to me," he beckoned, and they stepped forward, cautiously hopeful. Joseph embraced each of them one by one, their cries mingling as tears fell, a river of sorrow transformed into joy. "Behold," he said, "my father's family is to become a great nation. The Lord has sent me before you to preserve life during the famine that has ravaged the land." A wave of gratitude washed over them as Joseph continued. "There have been 2 years of famine, and there are 5 years yet to come. I have prepared a place for you in this land of Goshen, where you may live and thrive." His words were a promise, a sanctuary in the midst of uncertainty. The brothers felt warmth, love, and an unshakable bond reignited as the heavy yoke of their past began to lift. Yet, in the midst of this reunion, Joseph knew they must bear the burden of their confession. "Do not quarrel along the way," he warned them, "for the Lord's plan is unfolding even as we speak." The shadows of their guilt would arise like specters, seeking to ensnare their hearts in doubt. The remembrance of betrayal would weigh heavily, but Joseph understood that through forgiveness they might walk unburdened. As they returned to their father, each brother recounted the events of their journey, speaking of their brother Joseph, who was alive and ruler in Egypt. Jacob's heart raced with disbelief and joy, the pain of losing his beloved son replaced with hope. "It is enough," he exclaimed. "If Joseph is alive, I shall go and see him before I die." Thus, driven by faith and love, Jacob set forth with his sons toward Egypt, unknowing of the divine significance that lay ahead. Along the dusty road, he recalled the dreams that had spoken of Joseph's rise, how the sun, moon, and stars would bow to him. It was as if heaven was whispering, beckoning him in great anticipation. In Egypt, Joseph prepared a feast, eager to celebrate the reunion. As the brothers entered the banquet hall, they marveled at the grandeur, yet their hearts trembled beneath the weight of their past. A table set by the hand of God awaited them, one that would draw them closer, to forge not just a path for survival, but a legacy of faith. Joseph raised his cup, proclaiming blessings over the meal. Let us remember, brothers, that through trials and tribulations, a bond forged in pain can bind us in love. The laughter and joy mingled with solemnity as the brothers sensed the deeper undercurrents of their family story connecting back to the covenant promises made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. In that moment of communion, the unbreakable tie of divine purpose surrounded them, and God's sovereign plan began to sharpen into focus. For the journey of the Israelites was just beginning to echo through the generations, leading towards a deliverance that would resonate throughout time. What other mysteries would unveil as God continued to weave the narrative of his people? What awaited their lineage, and how would the unfolding story intertwine with the fate of all nations? The hearts of those who walked in darkness would soon gaze upon the light, a divine revelation hovering just beyond the horizon. And Jacob, filled with the life of faith, made haste toward Egypt, his heart beating in rhythm with the promise he clung to. The life of his son was alive, as told to him. The caravan of sons moved with purpose, their hearts buoyed by a hope born anew. Yet, even as they journeyed under the scorching sun, the dread of confession pressed upon them. As they arrived at the land of Egypt, the sights and sounds overwhelmed. The marketplace grived, echoing with the vibrant call of traders. Yet the weight of their past loomed, a dark cloud veiling the brightness of their reunion. Jacob entreated his sons to remain steadfast, for unity was necessary in this new chapter. When they reached Joseph's house, the brothers stared at one another, uncertainty etched on their faces. They had witnessed his rise, but what of their past? What would be his judgment upon them now? "Bring forth gifts," said Judah with trembling hands, remembering his plea long ago. "Let us soften the heart of the ruler who we wronged." Upon entering, they fell before Joseph, their faces pressed against the ground, surrendering their fears to him whom they had betrayed. But Joseph, seeing their quaking forms, was moved, his heart echoing with the memories of childhood laughter and the pains of separation. "Fear not," he declared, his voice resounding with authority and gentleness. "Your sins are not greater than God's grace. It is I whom you seek, your brother, whom you thought dead, yet God has preserved my life for this hour." He commanded food to be brought forth, a feast that would nourish both body and soul. As they sat together at the table, Joseph cast glimpses at his father, longing to hold him close. "My father shall come," he declared, a fervent promise weaving through his words. "I will provide for you all, for there are yet 5 years of famine yet to come." As they ate, Joseph's heart overflowed with warmth. He observed their trembling hands slowing, their eyes brightening as laughter dared to break the heavy silence. Yet he discerned a hidden fear, a shadow of mistrust. "Brothers," he asked, his voice steady yet tender, "tell me, how does my father fare? Does he yet live?" Seeing their hesitation, Joseph rose, and with an inward whisper sought divine counsel. The Lord's voice soothed his spirit, bringing to mind the dreams they once shared. "In all this, remember the covenant of your forefathers. The paths of our lives are interwoven in my grand design." Joseph then instructed his servants, "Fill their bags with the finest grains, and return their money secretly." Yet one last test lingered in Joseph's heart. He placed his silver cup in Benjamin's sack, an act that would spark a new trial. He yearned to see if his brothers had changed, if love now ruled where once jealousy thrived. As the brothers departed, they felt the weight of gifts upon their shoulders and hope igniting their hearts. Yet, unknown to them, God's hand guided each step, leading toward a revelation destined to shift the very fabric of their lineage. What would be the outcome of Joseph's secret act? Would it reveal the transformation of their hearts, or would it ignite the flames of their past once more? The threads of divine purpose were drawn taut, waiting to be unveiled, as the promise of a great nation loomed just beyond their grasp, ready to unfold in ways they could not yet comprehend. Would the blessing of reconciliation usher in not just survival, but a testament of God's faithfulness for generations to come? As the brothers journeyed back towards their homeland, a palpable sense of dread began to fill their hearts. They were unaware of the sudden twist God's providence had prepared. Unbeknownst to them, the intention of their return was veiled in darkness, as they had yet to discover the silver cup hidden within Benjamin's sack. It came to pass that in a short time they had traversed the road, still buoyed by the joy of reunion, but blind to the impending trial. Suddenly, pursuers from Joseph's house caught sight of them, their pace quickening to command their attention. "Stop!" cried the steward of Joseph, his voice rising above the clamor of the wind. The brothers, stricken with fear, halted, their hearts racing, anticipating the consequence of their prior deeds. "Why have you repaid evil for good?" the steward demanded. "If you have stolen from the house of your Lord, you shall be taken as his servants. Open your sacks." With trembling hands they obeyed, each brother in turn laying forth the contents of his sack upon the ground. The grain spilled forth, shining like hope amid their despair. Yet, when they saw the silver cup from Benjamin's sack, the air grew thick with impending judgment. Fear gripped them, and they fell to the earth, their stony hearts beginning to crumble. "What have we done?" cried Reuben, clutching his chest in anguish. "Surely this is our punishment." In that moment of despair, Judah stepped forward, a heartfelt plea rising from within. "My Lord, we come not as thieves, but as sons who seek whatever mercy you might offer. Take me instead of the youth." His voice trembled, each word a testament to the transformation wrought by sorrow and guilt upon their hearts. "I cannot bear to see my father's soul crushed for the loss of another son." Joseph, hidden behind a veil of authority, surveyed the trembling men before him. Their faces were as pale as death, yet a flicker of truth began to illuminate within him. He recognized in Judah's plea a profound change wrought by their past. The blood-soaked ashes of betrayal slowly transformed into a yearning for redemption. Turning away briefly to conceal his emotions, Joseph sought refuge in the chamber of his heart, wrestling with memories of days gone by, his brothers' laughter, and their shared trials.
Yet here stood the men who had changed, who had grown in ways he could never have anticipated. Finally, he could contain himself no longer. "I am Joseph," he proclaimed, the echoes ringing through the hall. "Is my father still alive?" His voice boomed with authority, layered with an intimacy that beckoned them closer. Shame washed over the brothers, the weight of their guilt crashing down like an avalanche. They could barely raise their eyes, paralyzed by the guilt of their actions. "Your servant, our father," Judah stammered, "is the last of the patriarchs, and his heart is old and weary. We have wronged you, we condemn ourselves, and yet we beseech you, forgive us." Joseph, moved to the core, pressed his hand to his heart. "Do not fear me, for what it was intended for evil, God has meant for good, to save lives as this day has come." Tears flowed like rivers from his eyes as he continued, "Bring my father here to me. Let us weep together. Let us be made whole." The brothers felt an unexpected rush of warmth. Joseph had not only forgiven them, but declared their family to be united once more. But amid the rejoicing and reunion, the shadow of mystery lingered. The plans of God were far from exhausted. They were only beginning to unfold. What lay next in store for the family now reunited in Egypt? Would they witness the full spectrum of God's covenant promises? The unfolding tapestry of His divine providence was set in motion, a plan not only for survival, but a precept of destiny that would echo through the corridors of time, shaping the identity of a nation yet unborn. Would this moment of reconciliation usher in the promise to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? God's sovereign design was poised at the threshold, awaiting the fullness of His purpose to be revealed. And it came to pass that Joseph's heart was filled with compassion as he beheld his brothers prostrate before him, trembling in fear. His mind raced, recalling the dreams once fashioned by the Lord, wherein the sheaves of his brothers bowed before his sheaf, a prophecy that now stood at the precipice of fulfillment. With a voice both gentle and firm, he addressed them, saying, "Come near to me, I pray you." The brothers hesitantly lifted their gazes and stepped closer, their hearts pounding with the weight of uncertainty. "I am your brother Joseph, whom you sold into Egypt. Do not be distressed or angry with yourselves for what you did, for God sent me before you to preserve life." His words struck them with a bewildering mixture of dread and astonishment. Surely their brother could not be so forgiving, yet his very presence radiated a grace they had not anticipated. Joseph continued, "For these 2 years the famine has been in the land, and there are yet 5 years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvest. God sent me before you to preserve a remnant on earth, and to keep alive for you many survivors."
The enormity of his statement washed over them like a mighty torrent. Their minds raced back to their treachery, now reframed within the canvas of divine salvation. In the dimly lit hall, as their hearts began to reconcile, Joseph's countenance shone with the light of hope. "Hasten and go up to my father and say to him, 'Thus says your son Joseph, God has made me Lord of all Egypt. Come down to me, do not tarry. You shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and you shall be near me, you and your children, and your children's children, and your flocks and your herds, and all that you have.'" He grasped Benjamin, embracing him with tears mingling for joy and sorrow. With the sight of Benjamin's face, the past nightmares of separation and anguish began to fade into a tapestry of reunion, weaving anew the bonds that once were shattered. The brothers, now mired in a rush of emotions, wept together, their hearts unburdened in Joseph's embrace. Then Joseph turned to them, his eyes bright with divine understanding. "You see, it was not you who sent me here, but God. His plans are eternal, and His ways are past finding out. He has made me a father to Pharaoh and Lord over all his house." Such profound revelation struck them deep, a revelation that would stir within their hearts the song of God's sovereign grace that transcended their betrayal. With a chorus of voices lifted in agreement, the brothers pledged to return to their father, brimming with tidings of their brother's exaltation and the promise of a future. The weight of the years beneath their burdens seemed to lift as they prepared to depart. Yet, as they readied themselves to take flight, Joseph added a solemn but hopeful charge. "Take my chariot and make haste. The time of reconciliation is upon us. Let your heart not be troubled by what has transpired, for God is weaving every thread of our past into an everlasting testament of glory." As they departed towards Canaan, an excitement mingled with trepidation danced in their spirits. They were not merely returning home. They were participants in a divine narrative that heralded transformation for generations yet to unfold. But the winds of Providence were still stirring, and the path ahead was yet obscured by divine mystery. What great things could God accomplish through this reunion? What greater fulfillment of His promises would echo through the ages, woven into the fabric of His elect? All heaven watched, and the heavens themselves seemed to whisper that this reunion was just the beginning of a much grander design, one that would redefine not only their family, but all God's creation. And it came to pass that the brothers journeyed through the wilderness, their hearts aflame with the tidings of reconciliation, their spirits buoyed by the hope found in Joseph's words. Beneath the wide expanse of the heavens, the sun cast its golden rays upon them, illuminating their path as they recalled the desolation of their past and tasted the sweetness of impending joy. As they approached the land of Canaan, Joseph's brothers spoke amongst themselves, voices intermingling with wonder and disbelief. "What shall we say to our father?
they murmured in near reverence. How shall we reveal to him the news that his beloved Joseph lives? And how will he receive the truth that we cast him into the depths of despair? Reuben, the eldest, took up the charge, saying, "We shall speak plainly to him of all the glory God has bestowed upon our brother. We must tell him of the abundance that has been provided in Egypt and of God's grace that has secured our family's future." His steady voice bore the weight of their shared guilt, but was also tinged with newfound hope. With hearts emboldened, they finally reached the encampment of their father, Jacob. There they found him, aged and weary, seated beneath an oak that had witnessed the passage of countless seasons. His countenance lightened at the sight of them returning, yet their expressions revealed an unspoken weight that drew him to question. "Is it well with you?" Jacob inquired, a tremor of anxiety flickering in his gaze. The brothers quelled their fears and stepped forward, fear and joy dancing within them. "Father," Judah began, his voice steadier than before, "we bring tidings of great joy. Joseph, your son, lives. He is lord over all the land of Egypt. Behold, he sends for you to come down to him, that you and your offspring may dwell in the land of Goshen." The words hung in the air, heavy with the gravity of revelation. Jacob's heart sank momentarily as disbelief clouded his thoughts. Yet as the testimony of his son sank in, the flame of hope ignited within him. Memory flashed through his mind, the dreams, the vibrant coat, Joseph's laughter, and the void left by his absence. As he listened to the brothers recount the tale of their journey, the providence of God's unfolding plan enveloped him. He recalled the covenant made with Abraham, passed to Isaac, and then to himself, a promise anchored in generations yet to come. "Joseph lives?" Jacob cried, overcoming the depths of sorrow that had enshrouded his soul for so long. Tears of joy streamed down his aged face as he proclaimed, "It is enough. I shall go to see my son before I die." And so it was that Jacob's heart swelled with the warmth of grace, and he prepared to set forth toward Egypt, buoyed by the promise of reunion and the hope of restoration. As the family set in motion, unseen forces stirred in the heavens, for a great journey was to unfold that would lead them into the annals of history. What memories awaited them? What lessons of faith and divine intervention would transpire as they traversed the path God laid before them? Amidst the anticipation, the divine mystery deepened.
For in this reunion lay not just the echoes of familial love, but the very seeds of a nation's future. Little did they know that the threads of their lives were woven into the larger tapestry of God's covenant, a covenant that would stretch far beyond their own existence and touch the hearts of many. Yet still, the question lingered in the air like a fragrant incense, resonating through the corridors of time. What greater work was God intending to accomplish through this unfolding story of Joseph and Jacob? The very foundations of the world would tremble and rejoice as God's sovereign hand directed all things toward his perfect will. And it came to pass, as Jacob set forth with his sons toward Egypt, the sun dipped low, casting hues of crimson upon the clouds. A sense of urgency surged within their hearts, for the moment of revelation was near. They traveled together, trotting upon the age-old paths that led them south, laden with the promise of restoration and the weight of unspoken confessions. As they entered the land of Egypt, a profound awe enveloped them, for they saw the wealth of the land and the signs of God's favor in Joseph's renown. The grandeur of the Egyptian courts revealed a magnificence that their humble abode lacked. Gazing upon the fertile Nile, Joseph's brothers pondered the transformation their brother had embraced. "How mighty he has become," they whispered, glancing at one another with burgeoning wonder. Days passed quickly, and at last they arrived at Joseph's house. And it was there that Jacob's heart raced with anticipation. The brothers, filled with trepidation, approached Joseph's threshold, remembering the darkness of their past. The door swung wide, revealing Joseph, adorned in fine Egyptian garments, his presence commanding as he beheld the faces of those who once betrayed him. "Is it truly you?" Jacob exclaimed, eyes wide with astonishment as he stepped forward, trembling with joy and disbelief. Joseph, gripped by emotion, embraced his father fiercely, the tears flowing as decades of sorrow melted in the warmth of love. "It is I, father. I am your son Joseph, whom you thought lost." Yet in that moment an unsettling whisper lingered within the hearts of the brothers. They stood aside, weighed down by guilt and shame, memories of their heinous act entwining with the jubilation surrounding them. "Joseph," Reuben dared to speak, voice quivering, "we have wronged you. We sought to harm you, and it haunts us still. Forgive us, for we have sinned against you and against heaven." Joseph, with a heart of compassion, took hold of their shoulders and looked deeply into their eyes. "Do not fear, for what you intended for evil, God intended for good, to bring about the salvation of many. Come now, I shall provide for you and your families. There is no place for sorrow in our reunion." As they settled among the bounty of Egypt, tranquility seemed to envelop the household.
Yet Jacob quietly pondered the significance of this newfound blessing, recalling the visions that had been given to him in his youth. Was this not the fulfillment of the promise spoken to his grandfather Abraham, that his descendants would be a great nation? The nights grew long, stories passed between the generations, and the tapestry of familial ties slowly mended. In the shadow of God's grace, Jacob began to see a greater plan unfolding, for Joseph had not only saved his family, but played a pivotal role in a shifting tide toward a future that was greater than any earthly kingdom. And yet, an unsettling thought reverberated through the stillness of the night air, like the gentle rustle of leaves in the wind. What trials awaited them in this foreign land? What deeper revelation was God preparing in His sovereign grace? Indeed, they remained unaware that the very foundations of their lives were set against a backdrop of a promise that would echo through the ages, a divine legacy intertwined with the destiny of nations, compelling them to surrender to the fullest measure of God's will. Little did they know, the unfolding story of Joseph was but a whisper of what was to come, setting the stage for a mighty deliverance beyond their own understanding. For in the heart of God, the journey had only just begun, and the world would soon witness the divine orchestration of a plan so vast, its ripples would touch lives for generations to come. Ladies and gentlemen, the time would come when God's promise would be revealed. A covenant sealed with blood that would transform humanity, calling many unto himself. And it came to pass, in the days that followed, that Joseph summoned his brothers to him in the quiet of the evening. The moon hung high, casting a silver sheen upon the Nile, a testament to the faithfulness of God through the ages. "Brothers, gather unto me," he said, his voice rich with both authority and tenderness. "We must not forget the journey that has brought us here, nor the hand of God that orchestrated our paths." They drew near, feeling the weight of history and the significance of the moment. "Tell us, Joseph, how did the Lord lead you?" Judah asked, his heart yearning for understanding. With a solemn gaze, Joseph recounted his trials, the pit where he was cast, the chains that bound him, and the false accusation that cast him into a prison of despair. "But God was with me," he declared, "and in that darkness He honed my spirit for a purpose. He blessed me with dreams, and those dreams became the key to our deliverance." The brothers listened, their hearts weighed with remorse, yet softened by the grace that enveloped them. Joseph continued, "It was all part of the divine design. What you meant for harm, God used for good, to save lives, even as He foretold through Pharaoh's dream. 7 years of abundance shall give way to 7 years of famine."
At these words, a great fear gripped the hearts of the brothers. They recalled how the very hands that once sought to destroy Joseph were now in the hands of the one who held their fate. "What must we do?" Simeon asked, his voice trembling beneath the weight of guilt and collective history. "Fear not," Joseph replied, his heart swelling with compassion. "We are a family reunited. I will provide for you and your kin and all who seek refuge in this land. There is grain aplenty, and we shall gather it together." Yet a shadow lingered within the minds of the brothers, who could not yet shake off the dread of their past. They wondered whether the time of reckoning might still come, for though Joseph had forgiven them, their spirits wrestled with the burden of transgression. The following days melted into weeks as they dwelt in the land of Egypt. The brothers witnessed the great mercies bestowed upon them, as Joseph set aside provisions and offered them comfort. And thus they began to flourish as they had in Canaan, but the memories haunted them still, for burdens that are forgiven are not easily forgotten. One night, as Joseph walked along the banks of the majestic Nile, he sensed a stirring in his spirit. "Lord," he prayed, casting his gaze to the stars, "you have brought me to this place and restored my family. But what lies ahead for us in this land? How long shall your favor rest upon your people? And what trials must we endure to fulfill the promise spoken to our ancestors?" No answer came, yet in his heart he felt a whisper, a promise of greater things to unfold. The days passed, and the famine soon crept forth upon the nations, just as Joseph had prophesied. Then came the moment when all the land cried out for sustenance, and many came to Egypt seeking life. As Joseph opened the storehouses, he saw his vision manifest, strangers and kin alike standing in need. The breadth of God's plan began to unfurl before him, each day echoing the depth of prophetic truth. In that very moment, a thought pierced his heart like a mighty arrow. This was not merely about food and sustenance. It was a divine declaration that the Lord was orchestrating a grand deliverance, one that would intertwine the fates of nations and involve the entire lineage of Abraham. In solemn anticipation, Joseph raised his eyes toward heaven, humbled by the unfolding revelations. "What new purpose do you unveil, O Lord? What deeper commitment are we to make in light of your grace?" Little did they know, the sovereign plan of God was far deeper than their comprehension, a testimony woven through hardship and hope, preparing them for a destiny far greater than they could imagine. For the lifetime struggles of one man would echo through generations, leading to a promise that would shake the very foundations of the earth, heralding the coming of a salvation yet to be revealed. And it came to pass, in the fullness of time, that the years of famine relented, yet the legacy of those ancient struggles continued to resonate within the hearts of Joseph and his family. As they settled into the land of Goshen, the children of Israel multiplied, and in their prosperity they began to forget the weight of their history, blinded by the blessings that surrounded them. But Joseph remained vigilant, knowing that the challenges faced were not yet behind them. He had seen the hand of God deliver, yet he understood that a new generation would rise, unacquainted with the pain of the past. He called his brothers together, the elders of a mighty, growing nation. "My brethren," he spoke, his voice carrying authority yet wrapped in love, "we must anchor our children in the stories that brought us together, lest they forget the faithfulness of the Lord. As the sun set over Egypt, casting golden hues upon the sands, they gathered around the fire, sharing tales of their journey from Canaan to Egypt. Let us remember," Joseph encouraged, "how the Lord did not forsake us even in our darkest hours. He brought us through trials for a purpose, to prepare us for deliverance." Judah, growing wise in the years since their return, nodded solemnly. He spared us to become a great nation, yet we must remain humble, for pride brings destruction. The elders listened intently, their hearts warmed by the familiarity of unity. They understood that though they had suffered in the past, it was their faith that had sustained them, and it was their responsibility to instill this truth in their children, for a day of reckoning lay ahead, one that would challenge their faith and redefine their understanding of God's purposes. Not long after, events unfolded that turned their world upside down. A new Pharaoh arose, one who knew not Joseph, and the people of Israel came under oppression. The Egyptians feared their growing numbers. Their hearts hardened against the descendants of Jacob. The cries of their labor filled the air, and with it an echo of anguish resounded from the depths of the Israelites' souls. Yet amid this darkness, hope flickered, held by the memories of dreams, promises, and divine favor. Joseph, now aged and wise, did not lose heart. He whispered to his family, "Fear not, for the God we serve is faithful. He shall hear our cries and remember the covenant made with our forefathers." In the night, as the stars blinked their distant lights, Joseph prayed for his people, lifting his voice in fervent supplication. "O Lord, remember your promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You are our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Deliver us from bondage and unleash upon us your mighty arm." And God, who sees and hears the cries of his people, prepared to act. The struggle would grow, and the burden heavy, but within the crucible of suffering, his plan would take shape. As the years rolled on, pressing hardship beckoned the Israelites deeper into despair, yet something was unfurling beneath the surface. As God raised up a deliverer, Moses, born beneath the shadow of death, yet preserved by providence and faith, he began to weave together the strands of hope once more. In the midst of oppression, the time for liberation approached. One fateful night, under the cover of darkness, a deafening cry heralded the dawn. The blood of the Lamb marked the doorposts, a sign of salvation. The hearts of the Israelites surged with anticipation. "Freedom is at hand," they proclaimed, hope igniting like a spark among dry timbers. When the Pharaoh released them, as the Red Sea parted before them, Israel stepped forth into the promise, a people chosen to reflect the glory of God to the nations. They were witnesses to his faithfulness, to how suffering was transformed into salvation, all born from the trials of Joseph and the faith that had sustained their lineage. As they wandered toward the promised land, they carried with them the weight of their history, the dreams of Joseph, the faith of their ancestors, and the divine promise that God would never forsake his people. They were now a nation shaped by trials, held together by faith, stamped with the reality of a covenant that would echo through eternity. In that land overflowing with abundance, they would remember, for every feast and every harvest was a testament to the mercy of their God who had turned their mourning into joy. The lessons of Joseph, echoing through generations, would resonate vividly as they sang songs of deliverance, reflecting upon the truth of God's enduring love. And in the hearts of the families gathered around the firesides, the stories lived on, binding them as a people set apart, marked by redemption, preparing for a glorious destiny. Thus, through Joseph's trials and the greatest trials yet to come, God's sovereign hand remained unceasing, guiding and weaving, bringing to fruition a plan that would bless not only his chosen ones, but all nations through the generations. Even as they journeyed forward, the shadow of Joseph's legacy wove through their very identity, reminding them continually, what was meant for evil, God meant for good. And the people proclaimed with grateful hearts, Blessed be the Lord who delivered us from the hand of the oppressor, who fulfilled his promises, the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the dreams of Joseph. Ladies and gentlemen, the story does not conclude here. Gathering wisdom from this biblical narrative, reflect upon your own journey, for each of us must embrace the challenges set before us with boldness and faith. Now it is your moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next powerful biblical stories that will ignite your faith. Leave a like now to help spread God's word through the algorithm, reaching souls desperate for His truth. Comment your spiritual reflections and share how this biblical story has transformed your faith. And please share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's everlasting assurances. This is the moment to help spread biblical truth. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony of God's grace and sovereignty.